Hello, beautifuls. I am a couple minutes late, so thanks for joining me. Maybe a couple of you are coming on a little bit late too. I don't know what's in the air today, but I'm happy to be here. Hello, Dahlia, Adriana. So nice to see you. I'm in a different room today. Seems like there's always a new adventure going on for Midwife Monday. I don't know. I haven't quite settled in, I guess, yet to Kentucky life. Hello, Jill and Alexa. Yeah, I'd love to know who's here. Sam, hello. I can't wait to see you soon. Evan, hello. So, yes, I'm in a different room today. This is the free workshop room. And I'm trying this out because I've been sitting here all day anyway for virtual prenatals and school interviews. So, frankly, I was a little too lazy to move to the next room to sit at an uncomfortable desk anyway. I get to be on the floor in here, super cozy room, and I'm ready to go. So, if you're new here, or even if you're not, it's always nice to see and hear in the chat box who is here and who is watching, maybe where you're from, if I don't already know that. And as always, if you have a question or topic, honesty, hello. You are the most popular person at our house, honesty, right now. Dava can't stop talking about you. And Ever is pretty sure you need to come back to visit us soon. So, there, a public invitation. Good morning from New Zealand. It's morning there. How lovely. It is nearing late afternoon here, and it's been kind of a busy day and more to come. I think I'm here till 5 or 6 tonight, which is on the late side for me. All right, we're going to choose a card as we're all getting settled here in our spaces. Hmm. Okay, what is needed today? Amber, hello. So many nice new names. I would say faces, but of course, I can't see anyone else's face, sort of sadly. So nice to have you here. All right. What is needed today is always the question. Let's see. Here's the answer. Here's the response. Release. I feel like we got a similar message last week. No? Are we still releasing? Such a pretty card. I think Honesty gave me these cards actually, right? Didn't you? As I usually show you, it's the Roots and Wings deck. But release. So, not a whole lot of questioning there, I don't think. Yeah, full moon on Wednesday in Aries. So, yeah, release. What needs to go? That is the question. I'm going to think about that too. What or whom? What needs to go? And how does it need to go? I don't think the book really has anything else to say. This is a pretty simple deck that I love so much. Letting go, soften the hands, the heart, and release. The beauty is that now your palms are open to receive. Well, I lied. There definitely was wisdom there. What did I do with the card now? I've got too many things here. Okay, so we'll look at it one more time. Yeah, palms open to receive. That's so beautiful. So not only getting rid of this full moon, but what are we wanting to invite in? It's a good one. It's a good one. I have so many ideas, I think, lately of ways to go forward, but receiving in particular. hmm How do we want to receive? Are we worthy of receiving? There's so many good questions. Yeah, I think so. I'm ready for it. Are you? I'm ready for receiving whatever wisdom, whatever gifts the universe wants to send my way, releasing any fear around that or expectation in a sense. I don't have an idea necessarily of what that is. Right on, as always. It was a beautiful card. Releasing any fears for myself. Oh, wow. That's exciting. You might have a full moon, baby, Adriana. How beautiful. Yeah. Any other thoughts about that? Twins at home. I love how Dahlia got right to a subject today. It's 3:15. No messing around here. I got on late. We've got to get right to the birth talk. I love it. Twins at home. I don't know. What kind of questions do you have? I think for sure that twins at home is a very natural thing for a lot of women in the past, for sure, right? And it's just one of the things that is in the high risk box in the medical interpretation. So I don't have a lot of twin experience. I've only ever helped three, I think three women that were pregnant with twins. And overall, that was a really positive experience. I learned so much and I have so much more to learn. But there are not a lot of women, at least that I'm aware of, that are having twins that go right towards home birth. So, midwives, even, it's why we don't have experience in stuff like breech and twins beyond the little bit we do, is mostly because many women, most women, are still choosing the medical model for those things. So, I wish that weren't so, but who knows what the future holds. So I don't know if you have specific questions about twins at home, Dahlia. Like I said, I wouldn't consider myself an expert in that subject matter past what I do know and what I've studied. I think ultimately, if somebody came to me and they were pregnant with twins, they would have to just feel so good about it. And that's kind of how I work anyway. I really want the women I work with to feel so good about it. I want them to feel magical and ready for the challenge, whatever those are, of doing the work that is being pregnant and birthing. And that makes me feel so much more settled in my role, um, because it's not a matter of me granting someone permission. So, twins is a great example. The one woman that has a story in our book, Indie Birth, A Story of Radical Birth Love. That's our book if you haven't read it. We do have a twin story in there. And that woman is so amazing. In fact, she is recently in our doula program. I think she might be done now. But her name is Charisse. And I'll never forget when she came to me pregnant with her twins. She said, I got pregnant with these twins naturally, and I'm going to birth them naturally at home. Like, she was just so sure and so confident. And of course, so healthy and so resonant and, totally aligned. And that was a really, really beautiful experience. And it taught me so much. So if you haven't read that story in our book, I think it's a really great one. And there's lots of beautiful photographs in the book as well from her birth. It was picture perfect, absolutely picture perfect. So, in some ways, I'm naive because I'm not a specialist in twins. I'm not Dr. Stu. Um, I haven't sort of seen the less pleasant things that occasionally can happen or go wrong, and the things that people are afraid of with twins at home. I have a pretty lovely view, but I definitely would take it seriously, of course, to support a woman with twins regardless, because the hardest job, I think, perhaps, is making it to term. So, the couple of women I've worked with, that's been the goal. Yes, the birth, but can you get there? And they mostly have, but growing two babies can be a lot of work, I'm sure. I've not grown two babies at one time, but it is a lot of work. And so we focus so much on nutrition and nutritional counseling when people have one baby. It's obviously double that with two. It is so important. So if that mom wants to make it to term to be able to birth at home, because I am not a fan of preterm twins at home at all, then she's got to do a lot of work and really take care of herself. And that's not just physically, although food is certainly one form of that and nourishment. There's all of it. There's the emotional, there's the spiritual, there's the mental. Um, Even being pregnant with twins in a world that thinks that's high risk, that's crazy. So I think twin moms have a lot to contend with and a lot of cultural stuff around that and birth. And it's hard work. It's hard work to grow two babies and often two placentas. Yeah, I mean, many women do make it to term, and that's the goal, right? I mean, that's normal, I think. That's considered normal because our bodies can grow two babies at once. Many women get pregnant with twins naturally, so I feel the same way as, my client did, which is if you can grow them or you can get pregnant with them, you can grow them. So it shouldn't be that weird. But the medical model, I think, screws things up a lot of the time, not just with twins, but in general. So if that woman is high risk and she's already going in for ultrasounds all of the time and tons of testing, there's not a lot of attention usually on her physical well being other than that. Is she eating enough? Is she getting what she needs to take care of her body? Emotional support. There's usually not that. So preterm twins in the medical model is also considered very normal. And so that's, what we're trying to avoid. So, in what ways are twins considered high risk? Well, I think it is the simple fact that there's two, and there's all kind of pathologies perhaps that can happen depending on what kind of twins they are. If they're sharing a placenta, if they're sharing an amniotic sac, what part of the amniotic sac are they sharing? So that's midwifery school stuff, but it does help to know it if you're going to help someone, that is pregnant with twins. I know for me, I would really like the person to have an ultrasound, at least initially, to determine what type of twins they are. Being someone that's not experienced, there would be a limit to what I would be able to help with. And there would be boundaries probably around that as well. So I would like to know that if I were to be working with someone. And, twins that are in the same sac, like for lack of a more descriptive word, are higher risk, right? There's more that technically could go wrong if they're sharing a blood supply or they're sharing an actual physical space, like cord entanglement or stuff like that. That I think is probably real, but is rare enough that most women having twins, I don't think are having that experience. So that is where the high risk label comes from. But then also the birth. So with two babies, right, we have two possibilities, and we get into the presentation of twins and baby A and baby B, and one's breech, one's head down, and all of that good stuff. So that certainly can up someone's risk, even in a home birth setting. depending on, again, if both babies are head down. And the that I'm speaking of in our book, both of those babies were head down. So, you know, in my mind, not a whole lot of risk in that way. So we weren't anticipating a breach. And of course, babies can, the second baby in particular could flip. So you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. But doctors, hospitals have all kinds of criteria, usually around how the babies can be positioned. So there's that, the first one's breech or uh, whatever, God forbid one is transverse, and that would not be helpful in a birth setting. You can't come out that way. But a twin that is laying that way, so transverse, side to side, is probably going to flip anyway before being born, obviously. So a home birth could be helpful for someone with twins if they just don't buy all of that. And if they're healthy and if they're thriving and the babies are growing well and they're super active and, the moms maybe had babies before, uh, then she just has to feel like home is the best place for them and understand the risks that may be involved, you know, and understand the choices that she may potentially have to make as far as interval between twins. Does she have an opinion on that, or is she gonna kind of go with whatever the flow is, or does the practitioner, the midwife, the doctor have an opinion on that, the time between births? And then after birth, is she confident in birthing those placentas? Extra blood loss can be associated with twin births, so hemorrhage in particular. And I mean, that hasn't been my brief experience, but I don't have a whole lot. So I think there's probably truth to that in some circumstances, but I don't think that throws out home birth as a possibility. You just want to be prepared. And again, if that mom is really nourishing herself, she's really building up her blood volume, 100%. And I mean that literally, like 100% more blood volume than she had before she was pregnant, then that should be plenty to nourish those babies, to grow those babies, to feed those babies, to grow the placentas, and to allow her to have a healthy birth. So, it's again one of those things that still has such a stigma of being high risk. And again, I think there are women that fit in that category. And whether that's because they want to be labeled high risk, maybe they're just more comfortable in a hospital, or if it's in reality, I don't know. But I think many women fall outside of that. I can think of someone that came for an interview a bunch of years ago that was pregnant with twins, and they were her first babies conceived naturally. She seemed great, super healthy, but her husband was not on board. And if I'm remembering correctly, he was an EMT. So they did not decide to have a home birth. And I don't really know what happened, except in any hospital, at least in the area where I was at in Arizona, you can't just have a vaginal birth in a normal hospital room. So you end up birthing in the ER, and, who knows what else ensues after that. So that is the choice it seems like most women still make, unless maybe they're super lucky and they live in Los Angeles near Dr. Stu or something, and they know that twins can be born at home with him. Otherwise, a lot of women don't even know that's a choice. Hmm. Josie, that's a great question. Let's see. Finding your voice and the courage to share and teach. Hmm. I think we'll all do that differently. And maybe that goes without saying, but I feel like that's the first thing I want to share, which is there is so much work to do in this world around our own personal power, around women's power, around birth, around mothering, that however you are called to embody that is the place for you. And we will not do it all the same. So, yes, I hear you. Finding your voice in the sense of like finding your truth and finding your courage to speak up and not be scared, not be scared what other people will think, or if you'll be able to do that really honestly, whatever comes up for you. I'm trying to reflect back on just my own experience to see if that would be helpful to share. It's definitely a process. It's definitely a process. And I don't know how age related it is. I mean, what does age even mean? I think it's more related to our experience and our sense of maturity in the best ways in the world, and really being being ourselves, right? Like that's what you're actually saying. And I think that is the reason we're all here. So we might have things to share with other people, like this, like publicly, public platform sharing. But I think a lot of the work is understated and not as public. And however we come to that, however it's right for us. So maybe it's more of a one on one connection that you will have, Josie, or, maybe that's how you'll share yourself and your own truth. Or maybe it's writing a book, right? Or I don't know. Maybe it's creating something else, some kind of artistic masterpiece. And so creation comes to mind as really the goal when we're called to share anything. We're really called to share our creations, whatever they may be. As far as birth work goes, I do think courage is required. And I'm not even sure I would use that word when I think about, just speaking honestly, like, is that courage? It kind of falls outside of that in a sense of not even labeling what your truth is or isn't. Because by nature, your truest voice isn't courageous, right? It isn't. It defies a label. It's just you. And it may be interpreted by others as courageous or stupid or, whatever. But speaking your truth doesn't really have any other sort of label. It's just you being you and carrying whatever vibration that resonates with other people, that attracts other people to whatever you're doing, whether it's your message, whether it's your book, whether it's whatever. Um, I don't know, some skill or special talent that you have. So that's kind of a blab, but I would leave with the vibration essence. Oh, it's 3:33. It's always 3:33 here at some point. So uh, nothing too magical about that, except it's a very special time. So that came at an interesting point in the conversation, talking about vibration and just embodying that, like your best self, and not from the ego perspective, your best, like whole self, your best version of love and vibrancy, and actually feeling that way. So it's not just an idea in your head, it's actually how you are in the world to the best of your ability. And that is the message. And if people don't like it, you don't even hear it. I mean, I know not everyone likes my message. That's okay. And I used to be more sensitive to that, right? Like mean comments or like online trolls or emails. And it doesn't really bother me, at least not too much anymore. It's just, you go on your way and you feel a distinct difference. So if someone does come into your reality that maybe has that attitude, you feel the distinct difference in vibration, and you get a choice at that moment. Am I going to go that way? Am I going to engage with that? or do I keep on? And most of the time, the choice is easy. I mean, every now and then it's like, what could I say back to that person? But it's not worth it. It's not worth it. You're speaking a different language, and that language is frequency. Yeah, good vibes. This is like some old shirt of one of my daughters, but it's a good one. Wow, so we've knocked out twins at home. Nothing exhaustive there. And a quick pep talk about finding your truth. It is so needed, though. I mean, ask another question if you have it, post another topic. But in the meantime, I'll just keep blabbing. It is so needed. If not now, when? Like, what are we waiting for, right? Our time in this body is limited here on Earth, at least this time around. So, what are we waiting for? We waiting for someone else to like tell us it's okay to be us, or to congratulate us on being authentic? I mean, it's not going to happen. So if we're living in that way for ourselves, we're kind of also doing that part for ourselves too. We're realizing like, hey, this feels good. This is me. This is why I'm here. I know I'm a part of something bigger, and that means more to me than anything any other human could do or say. They cannot take that from you. Nobody can. Nobody can take from you your love and your reason for being. And that is where our voices come from. But we're so conditioned to keep it quiet and to not offend and to care more about other people's reactions than we care about ourselves. So, I've felt that too. I do feel that occasionally, but it's again coming back to the bigger picture and the exciting news that we're here on earth right now, and there's so much good work to do, and there's so many people that want to do it and engage in this way and connect and create something really beautiful. So that's where it comes from, is really keeping that bigger picture and that feeling. What other questions or topics do we have today? Threes are your favorite number. How fun. I thought about getting, well, Rumi's birth time is 3:33, as most of you know. So it's a very special number, but it's not just that it was his birth time, it's meaningful to me as well, Josie. And his birth also just like marked a new time in my beingness, in my life thus far. So I was thinking about getting that tattooed somewhere on me, the 333, but I don't know. I don't know where, I don't know when, I don't know how. Could be though. I'm looking at getting another tattoo here sometime soon with one of my daughters who got her first tattoo last week. She went back to Arizona, so she got one, and I can't wait to see it in person. So she and I might go on another adventure together here soon. Hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Evan. So, healing your own birth story is something I love thinking about and just exploring with women. So I don't have like a magic formula to it. I think it's just really fascinating to hear someone's story, like you're sharing here, Evan. You were born by cesarean, your mom was unconscious. Um, you were a rainbow after she lost one of your sisters who were twins. Interesting. Yeah. Well, I know that our birth experiences are held in our memories, in our cellular memories. I'm pretty sure that that's true. And if that's true, then our mothers, our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, etc., all pass down that to us as well, just as we will also pass down stories. So it's not just the story, but it's the cellular memory. So the imprint, the feelings that went along with these events. But then it's like we're so different. We're all so unique and individual that what we do with that information, I think that's the great unknown. Some women will directly repeat their own birth experience that their moms had with them as their first birth. Like, just no questions asked, kind of like carbon copy. Cesarean is a great example. And I know that wasn't your story, Evan, but it can look like that for women for sure. Like, they were born by cesarean, and I'd say a lot of those women who I work with or have worked with, they will have a repeat cesarean. Not everybody, of course, because there's so many ways and threads, and even down to the clinical story. So, why did their mom have a cesarean? That's a great question. Sometimes it's a long, difficult labor. Sometimes the mom never even went into labor. It was just an automatic cesarean for breech. So, however that affects, the baby is unknown. And I know when I work with people individually, I really love to ask them some of these questions, and I have a whole document about it. So, asking them to think about and feel the energies around their mom's birth of them, if that makes sense. So, doing an interview with their mom is something that's really helpful for some women if their mom is still around and hopefully she's wanting to talk about it, just kind of interviewing her. And, we've all heard the story usually before. Most of us have heard our own birth stories, but getting more detailed in the questioning and really going for like the emotions around what she was feeling, and not just the birth. So, even conception, like, do you know the energies around which you were conceived? That's really, really important. Maybe your mom didn't know she was pregnant for a while, right? Maybe she didn't want to be pregnant. Like, there's all kinds of emotions around finding out someone's pregnant. And that usually influences the pregnancy, at least to a minor extent. So that's what I first recommend to women who are pregnant themselves, is doing this interview with their mom. Also, as a birth worker, I think we have this in our Birth Warrior Project, the doula program, so that even if the woman in the doula program hasn't birthed yet, she has had this interview with her mom, and has a better understanding of what she remembers as a baby. Because even getting into birth work, we don't have to have birthed ourselves. We were birthed. And so we're carrying that. We're carrying that emotional memory, kind of no matter what it is. And, honestly, that's why most of us get into birth work. There's something in that memory, in that code, that might be, sort of traumatic, or like makes us want to act and clear that in that way. And so, birth work is not the place to clear that. Birth work is, I think, there to serve other women. But we first have to clear our own shit before we get into that. So, my story, just briefly, I think it's in the book. I was born early. I was a preemie. I know the whole story. I think there's definitely emotion. There was emotion around that. And my very first birth of my own daughter was very, very similar. And I was completely unconscious to any of this at that point. This was almost 20 years ago. I had no idea that my birth would maybe look the same, and I didn't know where to look for any of that, or any kind of memories around that. So, um, it can take several births, I think, too, and maybe other ways, right? Not just our births, but sometimes we have losses, or other stuff going on with our bodies that really is part of the story, is part of the ancestral line of the women in our families that carried this or that. And now it's presenting in our bodies, in our awareness, in our consciousness, for us to work out. I think that's what I think. And then I think many of us here at this time on earth are being gifted the support and the ability and the awareness to change some of these patterns. So, to consciously change the pattern, you have to be aware of it. And by doing that, so clearing, like, let's just make something up, right? um, clearing this belief that our bodies are dysfunctional in whatever way that shows up for us. When we kind of clear that through birth or whatever, then when we have daughters, have sons, it's been cleared for them. It's been wiped away from that cellular memory. That's how I like to think of it. That's been my experience. You don't have to have had the exact same experience, but I think we're probably agreeing here that this is part of the path of being human, and that if we're going to remain, each in only our fixed identities and fixed bodies and act like the other stories don't matter, then, that's fine too. Maybe they don't matter. Maybe they don't matter to those people, but for many of us, they do. And I think it also helps us gain wisdom, our own wisdom, and our own peace around the way things go and the fact that we don't control everything. And this isn't about like working it out so that we have the perfect birth, um, because things crop up in all kinds of ways that give us opportunities to learn more about ourselves. And I think that is actually the goal in a way, right? To just keep learning about ourselves and how we could do better and how we're hanging on to this or that, and birth and motherhood and all of that. Such a great way to do it. Yeah, so many stories that we each have, right, around our own births, and maybe myths. So many women I sit with, right, if they're new clients I'm working with, learning this about them and hearing their version of their story is so interesting all the time, because often from a clinical point of view, it doesn't make any sense, right? They've just been told this story. It doesn't make any sense. So if that's the case, then if that woman is open to sort of unraveling it, she can receive lots of healing from that. And that goes for, our own birth. So sometimes people come and sit and they're not talking about their mom, they're talking about their first birth or their last birth. And it's the same thing. The story doesn't make any sense. So obtaining records, medical records, for example, that's one concrete way to like get some facts. And then, in addition to facts, going back with the emotional memory, what do you remember feeling? Were you scared? What else was going on in your life at the time? What else was going on in your body at the time? There's so many great questions. Yeah, such great comments. Adriana, Jill, Evan. Yeah, it's a very cool thing. And like I said, I don't have like a neat and tidy packaged clean it up solution, but just having these conversations is really helpful. Just talking about it and hearing the versions of the stories, and then digging a little deeper, how do those things show up in our lives? How do our births show us how we are today? What can we attribute to that, even if it is just a story? Can we go back sort of to that time when we were born in a way, in meditation or, through journaling or whatever, kind of like a rebirthing process? Uh, what were we feeling? What do we remember? And kind of take it from there. It's also interesting. All right. Any last topics, ideas, questions? We're nearing the end here. I'm trying to think if I have anything. I feel like there's so much on my brain right now, but I don't know that I can make it come out in a coherent form in the next 10 minutes. um, yeah, just lots of planning and brainstorming, feeling kind of the end of the year almost here, and excited to see where things go, start up some new projects. I think I'm going to do another free workshop here in December, which is actually feeling very close. Shake things up some more, show some awesome birth videos. and yeah, making that contribution. The next generation of midwives and new midwives. What is needed in midwifery care? I don't know if I know the answer to that, Sam. I was reflecting on a similar topic this past weekend, just like in my head. And the reflection was that when we have elders, there's, I hope, a respect for where they've come from and their own path. But also, in something like midwifery, there can also be a feeling of like frustration, right? Around like, this needs to evolve, people, right? Like the old way of doing this isn't working anymore. And so I was having these thoughts while simultaneously feeling like one day I'm going to be that person that's like the old fuddy duddy, right? And like, what are the new generations of midwives going to see about what we did here that just stops working? And I don't know the answer. I mean, it's kind of like a humbling place to be, right? Because we all become that at some point where perhaps we're just not attuned to whatever vibration is coming in. So that's not really what you were asking. Um, I don't know that I can speak about like the future too far ahead. I feel like I'm here right now in this present, and needed right now is something entirely new, a departure from midwifery as even a birth focused profession. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like we need a new vocabulary. And I said a little bit about this in the podcast that I put out yesterday. Like, I don't feel like midwifery as it's happening around me means anything. Like, it's like I don't understand what that is anymore. And I don't mean to sound arrogant, like I'm better than that. It's just, I did that too once upon a time, 10, 15 years ago. And I don't feel it anymore. It's like I look at it and it doesn't make sense to me. And I think where I want to be heading is in a direction where there's just so much more available to women with what we offer. And the women are also, doing so much more for themselves. And maybe in some way it's a regression. I don't know. Like maybe it's a regression back to midwifery many, many, many lifetimes ago, where there was this role, but it wasn't just birth, right? And it was death, and it was the witch lady and the herbal doctor and all of that. Like these were all things that this same person, the same role offered to the community. So that's a really like elusive answer, I realize, but midwifery outside of what it means to birth, what it means to be magical, what it means to like be a magical woman, and all of the life cycles that are in that. And again, I guess, the idea of our retreat center is just feeling more and more relevant for this purpose, because I think having it be a birth and even death center. So, I mean, Nathan is manifesting just as quickly in his way, and this could be the same place that we have together, or maybe it's not, but very much this birth and death center. and this community vision of like being self-sustainable and having people come and being fed by the land itself, by the people that work there, that are creating the food with all kinds of healers and channels and practitioners and all of these beautiful people that support the process. So it takes midwifery from like one person, one lady attending births, to an entire community of like magic givers. Like that's what I want. And that's what I envision this center to be. So midwife, I don't know. I don't know what the word is, but yeah, it is. It's much less defined, I guess, honesty. Um, yeah, I guess I can't think of better words at the moment, right? And again, many of you are like in this vision with me, so maybe, you're not any clearer in a sense. But again, going back to like whatever the mainstream version of midwifery is right now, and like this is happening, right? Like it's happening all around us. And every now and then I kind of like get a dose of reality, like I said in the podcast, like looking at the rules or like, looking at someone's website that's a licensed midwife. And I'm not saying it with judgment, like go do that. Like they should go do that. That's their calling. But I read the words and I just like I don't understand what they're talking about. So I'm gonna keep working on my words around this, I suppose, but it's really just feelings. It's a lot of feelings right now of wanting to create a new world and each of us having our role in it. And we're trying to find the words for what that role is. But I think we're all being asked to go above and beyond these simple definitions because they're just not going to mean anything in this new world. They're not going to resonate in the same way, right? Like the frequency has changed. And maybe that's bad, maybe it's good, but the frequency of midwife as it stands right now isn't the vibration I'm looking for. It isn't what I feel like I'm wanting to create. And, our students and the people that we're attracting, it's something much, much more. So if you have a better word, I'd love to hear it. But I think that is all for today. So thank you all for being here. You're all so lovely and have the best conversational pieces ever for me to blab on my own about. I really, really appreciate it. So fun always to just get the opportunity to like talk about whatever and make it fun and feel supported in the vision of that with all of your wonderful comments and many of you I know personally, which I'm so, so thankful for. All right, everybody, time to get on to the next thing here. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I will see you next week. Have a great one, and happy full moon. We'll check back after that. Bye.